Hi, I'm Stephen King, CEO of GrowthForce, and welcome to Put Your Numbers to Work podcast. I'm here today with Bryan Gregory, President of Aldridge Technology, a managed service provider here in Kingwood. Welcome, Bryan.
Thank you for having me.
Today we're going to talk about how Aldridge puts its numbers to work. And I'd like to start first with, tell us a little bit, what is Aldridge and what do you do and how do you do it?
So very simply put, we do complete IT outsourcing, and that means everything from help desk services. We run a 24-hour call center, so any employee of our clients can call in to get support, whether it's after hours or during the middle of the day. They can call, they can get an engineer, they can fix their problem. But more importantly, we provide our clients with a CIO to help them navigate what they should be doing with technology over the next 12, 18, 24 months. Historically, people like us, we've really focused on reactive support. How quickly can we be there to resolve problems when they happen? And we still have to do that, but what our organization and what our culture is moving towards is how do we be proactive? How do we make sure that clients are properly investing in what they need to with technology and putting the right software as a service and different applications to work for them so that they're set up for success 2 years from now, not just how quickly can we solve those problems.
So it's not just break fix, it's strategic technology.
Yes.
In that CIO role.
Yep.
So as the president of the company, you guys have grown a lot.
We have.
And I've had a chance to go over your numbers and as part of my Vistage presentations. And so as a strategic provider, how do numbers fit into your strategy of the company? What kind of things are you looking at?
So we're looking at quite a few things. So we're looking at everything on the sales side, from how many leads do we have to generate to get X number of new clients, but on the customer service side, how many tickets are we closing each day? How many business reviews are we having with our clients to do those planning sessions? What's our average hold time on the phones? What's our average customer support our customer satisfaction that we're getting from everything from every ticket that we close? We do a customer satisfaction survey on, and we also do a quarterly client survey to understand how good of a partner are we doing. And we're measuring all those things. One, we wanted to collect the data over the years so that we know where we stand and what our internal metrics are and where we stand as an organization, but also what levers can we pull to incrementally improve those quarter over quarter. And if we make a decision that impacts our client base and we see that it doesn't improve, what did we do wrong? How do we go back? How do we reevaluate that to get it right the next time?
So everything you've mentioned there are non-financial data, both leading indicators and lagging indicators. So what do you do with it? Is performance based on that?
Oh, yes. Yeah, so we made a change 2.5, 3 years ago, and everyone in the organization has an incentive that's tied to some KPI, so some metric. Whether that's a financial metric, whether that's a customer satisfaction metric, whether that's a number of closed deals metric. But we try to build a culture around managing by the numbers, and when the company succeeds, the individual succeeds.
Fantastic. So let's dig into it. So what does your service organization use?
So gross margin of the service organization, where one of our core values is keeping the company strong, and we want to make sure that the company succeed so that we have a place for our clients to come, we have a place for our employees to come the next day. But they're also measured on client satisfaction. So one of the things that we even put in place is our client satisfaction hurdle. And so what that looks like is our client heartbeat survey. So this is the survey that we send out to all of our executives of our organizations and our primary contacts, measuring them on a net promoter score style. How happy are they with the partnership that they're receiving from us? And we set a hurdle that incentives don't pay out unless we cross that hurdle. We've hit it consistently, and client heartbeat's gone up quarter over quarter over the last 2 years, which is fantastic. But we know that if it even drops by 0.2 of a point, then we've made a change, or something's changing in the organization that we need to respond to.
So is there annual bonuses based on this? It's raises. I mean, what are you doing with the data?
So with that data specifically, that's paid on a quarterly basis.
Okay.
And then we also have annual bonuses for management and the executive team that's based mostly on profitability and gross margin.
So that people know if we hit this number, I'm going to get this dollar amount. Is it
Yes.
fixed? So you've identified the incentive compensation dollars.
Identify the dollars, and then also keeping it simple, making it meaningful, so that it does mean something to people. They know that it's a nice chunk of their annual salary.
What percentage?
They range anywhere from 20 to I think 45%.
Wow, that's a lot.
Depending on the position that you're in.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
And is it equal gross profit dollars with the customer satisfaction?
In the service department, it is. So generally, every position has a base salary, and then you've got two components to your bonus structure, and those two bonus structures are equal to each other.
That's great. So now let's talk about the sales and the leading indicators you've got to kind of study where you're going.
Yeah. So when people talk about sales, they talk about selling net new clients, or what we call new logos, and then selling to your existing client base. And so about 2 or 3 years ago, we were selling to our existing client base with account managers. And we made a change from that, and we changed from account managers to CIOs because our account managers were doing exactly what they were incentivized to do.
Right.
They were going and they were selling projects and they were selling hardware to our clients. Well, with the way that technology's changed and things moving to the cloud, where you could put in a $50,000 SAN before or new servers, now you can do that in the cloud and do it much more cost effectively. So we had to make a change there to incentivize people to sell the right things to our clients, not just sell the most expensive thing, which then gets them the biggest commission check. So instead of paying traditional commission and a percentage of what they sell, now we changed that metric to be how many business reviews are we having? And those business reviews are the planning sessions, the budgeting sessions that we do with our organizations. And then also, what type of roadmap are we putting in place? The roadmap may consist of, hey, times are tough, so we need to make sure that we scale down everything that we possibly can because times are tough. We need to save money. Or it may be, hey, we're going to plan to grow in the next 2 years. We need to put infrastructure in place to support that growth. And either one of those options are perfectly acceptable, and the CIO is compensated on making sure that we do what the client needs there.
So what are the numbers there? So you got subjective data and quantitative data, right? So number of QBRs done and then the quality of them. But how do you put a number on that?
So the quantitative is pretty simple. It either happened or it didn't happen.
Right.
The qualitative, we've put a matrix in place that identifies what investments has the client made, what technologies are either red, yellow, and green. Green meaning, hey, we're good, no investment needs to happen here. Yellow means over the next 6 to 12 months, something has to change here. And red's that risk that we need to do something fairly quickly. And we do that over about 25 different technology components. And so we can identify what needs to change now and what needs to change a year from now. And then we can, from our perspective, we can actually then budget what our project revenue is going to be and what our project COGS are going to be next year versus just what are we doing right now.
So it's interesting, when we got reconnected was around the sales development rep, and that's a completely different selling function. You guys are really good at that. Talk about those numbers.
Yeah, so we put a lot of focus here over the last couple of years.
What is it, first off, for the audience, what is an SDR? Or inside sales?
Inside sales. So with inside sales, that's someone that's basically beating the phones all day, every day. And we went through a few different people in that position and had a few different candidates come and go. And what we really found out is we wanted someone that's what they wanted to do. They didn't want to come do that role and then move into an outside role or move into a CIO or something like that. We wanted someone that had that passion. And the reason is the quantity of the calls and the emails and the number of follow-ups is large. The percentage success rate that you have in something like that is small, but having the right person and having the right insight into those metrics and those numbers it's been very fruitful.
So what are you looking at? What are the numbers that you're looking at?
So we're looking at total number of dials versus total number of connections. So and a connection could be they respond to an email, they pick up the phone and actually have a conversation with you, whether that's a conversation about the details of their IT or not. We have a percentage that we can get to just the people that will answer the phone to begin with and start that initial conversation with you.
And do you count the receptionist or the office manager who you got sent to, or just the CIO as a connection?
No, we also count the receptionist, because if we can talk to the receptionist and start getting some insight into the organization and getting some insight into the culture of the organization that can then help us pull some levers on how to best prospect that client in the future.
And what system do you use to track all this?
HubSpot.
You're using HubSpot.
Yeah.
Good.
So,
So do we. Yeah.
so historically we used ConnectWise, which is an industry
Sure.
software that our organizations like us use. And it's great on a ticketing system. We had some struggles with it on the sales function. And
Right.
specifically for this type of role, because there are so many clicks involved
Right.
from them every time they make a dial.
Right.
Where HubSpot now, he comes in, he pulls up his queue, he clicks the phone number, it dials to the system, it logs the call, it logs the activity, and it's increased his efficiency by about 25 to 30%.
Okay, so you're tracking the number of calls on the front end, you're tracking the number of connections, and then what? How does it work its way through the funnel?
Yes, so there are multiple paths that it can go. So we searched for a long time looking for the silver bullet in this, and we realized there isn't one.
Right.
It's you have to use some common sense and use some knowledge about what we're selling and the personality of the person you're dealing with to then put them down multiple paths throughout the sales funnel. So you may be talking to someone who's in a lot of pain, they're ready to make a decision, and our SDR can get them on the phone, have that conversation, and then route them directly to our sales principal to go out and have a meaningful meeting with them. And there's other folks that things are okay right now. IT's not really doing what they want it to do, but it's not painful enough for them to make a move.
Right.
And when that happens, then we make sure that we put them in our marketing drip campaign. And that marketing drip campaign consists of newsletters and blog articles and videos like this that we send out to them, not to be a hard sell, but to keep technology top of mind. And because what we want them to do is when there is an issue, when their existing IT provider does drop the ball, remember us and remember to call us, and then we can come out, we can have that meaningful
Right,
conversation.
that window of opportunity, you're going to be the name they
Yep.
can pick up. Yeah.
Yeah. And then from the time our sales principal meets with them, they sit down, they have a face-to-face meeting with a decision maker, with someone that's in pain. From there, we have very clear metrics that how many meetings do we have that turn into assessments, how many assessments do we do that turn into quotes, how many quotes turn into verbal acceptance, and then how many verbal acceptance turn into signatures on paper.
So you got 4 steps of the sales: meetings, assessments, quotes, and close win or loss.
Yes.
Great. And do you measure the ratios between them, the efficiency?
We do. We measure the efficiency between, but we also measure and know how many dollars we need to have in the sales funnel in each of those stages to ultimately hit our sales goals at the end of the quarter.
And that's a leading indicator. They have to figure out, what do you use that leading indicator for?
Knowing whether we need to put more in the top.
Right.
So do we need to do different type of marketing efforts to tee up more leads for the sales folks? Or do we need to focus on a qualitative, let's give them 2 or 3 that we can close quickly?
And it helps with timing of new hires and space and all that other stuff.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, those
Yes.
leading indicators are gold. So that's the sales organization and the service organization. Now, let's talk about, you mentioned gross profit and cost, your COGS costs. How do you use gross profit? Is that important to you?
It's very important to us. Like I said, keep the company strong is one of our core values. We've done acquisitions over the years where had we not acquired the company would have gone out of business the next day. And we sat down as a leadership team, and obviously from ourselves, we never wanted that to happen.
Right.
But looking around at the employees in that room, knowing that had we not acquired them, 35 people would have been out of a job the next day. And we said we never wanted to put our employees in that situation. And then also our clients. So those clients would have been in the same boat. As a business owner, making a technology change is something that you don't want to take lightly. You want to make sure that you go out and do your due diligence.
Right.
And if your existing provider would come to you and say, hey, we're going out of business tomorrow, that would put your business in a very, very difficult situation.
So why were they what got them in that situation?
Not looking at the numbers. We did one acquisition where they were about a $2 million business and had 35 employees. And being a professional organization, that you can quickly do the math there that doesn't work.
Right.
And they weren't looking at were their employees billable or not. And so billable doesn't mean by the hour. It means how many hours of your day are you putting against a client initiative.
Right.
And on average, they were about 40% billable.
Utilized.
Yeah.
Wow. So what should it be? What's your industry standard?
About 80.
80% utilization.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yep. And that 80 could be looking at R&D. So 80% includes face-to-face client time spent on projects, and then also R&D time on how do we improve the projects that we're working on today? How do we make it more efficient for us, but also less painful for the client to implement a new technology.
So what's the ratio that you're looking for on terms of what's a good revenue per employee number? Like if you got 35 employees on $2 million, right? That's what, $60,000 per employee, right?
Yeah.
So what's a good number?
Yeah, so we're looking at about 3 times their W-2 is what they should be billing back to the organization. So if you've got a $100,000 employee, they should be producing about $300,000 worth.
So it's not so much a head count, but a dollar per person.
Yeah,
Got it.
yeah, especially in our organization where you've got entry-level technicians that are answering the phones and doing help desk support on desktops and that kind of thing. But then you've got higher-end subject matter experts that are doing high-end networking implementations, cloud migrations, that kind of thing. So there's a big mix in salary there.
So you looked at you're acquiring businesses. So how do you use your numbers when you're trying to decide, should we buy this business?
So we look at a few things when we're looking to buy a business. One, we obviously want to see how financially stable are they today? What type of contracts do they have with their clients? What type of skill set do they have internally? And look at that as is. But then we also want to look at it as what's it going to look like once we fold it into the way that we operate. Across our industry, a lot of providers look the same on the surface, but they run their businesses very, very differently, and they measure very different things, and they service their clients very differently. So making sure we understand what are they doing, and then what's that going to look like once it folds into us.
So from a numerical perspective, are you assuming that are you doing anything like backing out the compensation of the owners or looking at extra expenses? I mean, what's the math you go through?
Yeah, so we do look at backing out the expenses of the owners if the owners are looking to move on. It's a mix. Sometimes they want to stay on, they want to go into a sales role. Most of the time that's not the case. Most of the time they're looking to retire or looking for an exit.
Right.
So we look at those type of things. We look at simple things such as rent and overhead like that we'll be able to just consolidate. But then also look at the number of wasted hours that they spend on things that we've been able to automate. So there's a lot of human time that most organizations go through just for general technology management that we've been able to automate over the years. One, it saves us human time and money, but it also increases the effectiveness of it and the accuracy of that management because you take the human element out of it.
Sure. Now, before we get started, you mentioned culture. Talk about how culture affects acquisitions.
Culture is a big one, and it's a big deal when it comes to employees. It's also a big deal when it comes to clients. And the biggest culture shock to them is they didn't get to choose us. And so we want to go in and make sure that they understand, hey, we're real people. We're here to serve clients just like you want to.
Right.
I think people inherently, they want to do a good job, and they want to work for someone that cares that they're wanting to do a good job.
Right.
And making sure that they understand that. But every acquisition we've done, their culture has been very, very different. And so going in and trying to measure what that looks like today, but then making sure that they quickly understand what our culture is and that they can integrate into that.
So what does that mean? What does culture mean in your organization?
One of our missions is to have fun making complex things seem easy for others, and the having fun is the big part of it. Taking service desk calls all day, every day, it can be cumbersome and it can wear on you. So we try to make sure that we introduce things to get people out of their desk for a little bit. Go play ping pong in the break room. Go play shuffleboard.
Yeah, I've been to your office. It's pretty cool.
Do something that gets you a mental reset from that. But at the end of the day, we're working on some complex things that require them to put their head down and really think through it and solve those problems for our clients. So finding someone that has that personality that can bounce back and forth, and then also when they have a client on the phone, make them feel good about the experience that they had. So really hiring for personality first is one of our biggest differentiators.
Have you found that you've acquired a company that didn't fit? Have you any lessons there?
Yes, we've had a lot of lessons over the years. We've had employees that literally when we announced that we were acquiring, they stood up from the meeting and walked out the door. And the first time that happened, we were like, oh my God, what did we do wrong?
Right.
And hindsight, it was probably a blessing because we want people that want to work with us, but we also want to make sure that we're there to support them and make them successful. And so we need to make sure that marriage is there for sure.
You know, and here you're talking about here is you recognize the importance of having both a financial management strategy and a human capital management strategy, and it's people who drive profits, right?
Yes.
So you know, I think that's why you've been successful. The successful firms understand you need both. Like if you want to lose weight, you need diet and exercise. We got, you know, you need to have both. Well, let's come back to the numbers. So, what kind of decisions are you making from these numbers? Like, you know, what does gross profit do in terms of helping you with pricing or firing clients or spending money to make money?
Yeah, so looking at pricing, we went through and took everything from the people it takes to serve clients, the technology it takes to serve clients, the amount of just let's go out and have a drink or let's go out and have lunch to build that connection with our clients. And we've really boiled that down to what it costs on a per user basis. So we price our services based on the number of users or the number of employees within our clients, and we flat fee that. And that was a very difficult exercise to go through because there was a lot of risk that it put on us to get it right the first time, and we didn't get it right the first time.
When did you do that?
We did that about 6 or 7 years ago.
Okay.
And so at the end of the day, the way technology is changing, it's not how many workstations are we supporting or how many servers are we supporting, it's the people in the organization. So they need help with a lot of technology. People walk around with an average of 3 devices now, whether it's your phone, your tablet, your laptop, your whatever that may be. At the end of the day, we're supporting you as an employee. And so we really needed to fundamentally understand, what does that mean? And so looking across the organization, you've got a lot of different personalities. And some people may call the service desk once a month. You've got other people that'll call it 3 times a week. And so we needed to really understand that and average that out so that we knew, on average, what it costs for us to manage those clients.
So you looked at the total number of costs, people costs, and software licensing costs. Are these all your above the line direct costs, or
Yes.
did you put rent and you know, utilities in those costs as
So
well?
everyone that services our client is above the line. So
It's direct labor.
Yep. So down to if we have a service desk engineer that answers the phone, their cubicle space is above the line because that is a cost of goods sold.
You put the actual rent in
Yes,
there? So
yes.
you're allocating rent into direct labor?
Yeah.
Okay, and then what about, you know, do you have a chief operating officer or manager responsible for that?
We do.
And are they talking to clients, or are they just managing the clients?
They're talking to clients as well, and they're also above the line.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So you took all your above the line costs, then you divided it by the number of what? Number of clients? Number of head users?
Number of users, yeah. And then looking across from a user that has 25 employees to a company that has 100 employees, what's that mix look like, and what's that time spent? And we found that it doesn't really go down as you get larger. A lot of people think, hey, as I grow, shouldn't I get a discount?
The unit economics,
and it just doesn't really work out that way, just because that employee, when they're working at 25 versus when you're at 100 employees, they're still having the same type of need that they have as the organization
So
grows.
what were the mistakes? So when you went through that 6-7 years ago, you didn't get it right at first. What are the lessons learned from that?
One of the biggest things we didn't take into account is looking at the architecture adoption from our clients and how that impacts the time we spend. And what that really means is looking at the technology that they've got deployed in the organization, how old their servers are, what applications they're running that are 3 versions behind, and really looking at those type of things to understand that, hey, if we replace the server, we put them on modern architecture, our support services will go down by X number of tickets based on that client.
That's interesting.
And we didn't really take that piece into account. We just simply looked at how many hours are we putting into our clients today versus what levers could we pull to reduce those number of hours for the future.
Is that a psychographic of the owner who's like a laggard versus a cutting? You know, I like to have the latest phone. As soon as the phone comes out, I want it.
Yep.
And the old phone was fine, but you know, it's not the new one. But
Yep.
But you know, my colleagues, you know, are just, you know, rip that flip phone out of their prying hands. Is that part of what it is, or?
It is, and it's also looking at if a client wants to be on what we call the bleeding edge, like you just described, there's actually a higher cost there as well because
bugs.
Technology that just comes out has bugs. So everything down to simple patches. We try to hold on to those patches just for a little bit so that all the other providers can roll it out, push it out, and we can see what damage that causes.
Right, that's interesting. What other decisions? I mean, do you ever have to fire clients because the margins aren't there?
We do. And the first thing we look at is what are we doing wrong?
Mm-hmm.
Let's go through and let's look at their ticket data. Let's look at the number of hours we're spending on the various types of issues that come through the door to understand, is it a training issue that we need to better understand the client and what they're looking for out of technology? But there are simply clients that we've gone to that don't want to invest in technology. They want to hold on to that server and get every ounce out of it that they possibly can. And our job along the way is to tell them that risk is there. But at the end of the day, we know how many hours that's going to cost us, and we'll give them notice and help them find a new provider that's better suited for them if that's the mentality they want to get out of technology.
What other kind of decisions are you making based on data?
So on the sales side, obviously looking at how many calls do we need to do, how many meetings do we need to do. On the CIO side, like I talked about, how many face-to-face business reviews or planning sessions do we need to have with the client to get them to adopt the technology. But on the marketing side, also looking at the different types of initiatives that we do that generate specific, what we call marketing qualified leads or MQLs, that then translate into sales qualified leads. Even on the HR side. So HR and recruiting is following a very similar sales pipeline and a very similar marketing strategy to get in front of candidates that then, if we talk to X number of candidates, that'll turn into X number of interviews, and X number of interviews turn into X number of offers.
It's interesting. I learned, we're in a client of Insperity, and one of the things that I learned as a client was that recruiting is not just an HR function, it's a marketing function.
Oh, yes.
And you got to have the same kind of sales pipeline and value propositions and target marketing as you would, because hiring an A player is the best sale you'll ever make.
Yep.
Much more impactful than a big
and
client.
To that point, when we're generating marketing content, we're always looking at it in 3 buckets. What content can we produce to educate our prospects that aren't our clients yet? What content can we produce that our clients will find valuable from us? And what content can we produce that will resonate with prospective employees? And when we can check all 3 boxes with the same piece of content, that's gold.
Wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
So got a good sense of you as the president, what data you're looking at. Tell me about your management team and your managers. What do you distribute to the managers, to the company, to the employees?
Yeah, so from a manager perspective, we have a Monday morning meeting that we sit down and we look at a goal.
I'm sure they love the weekend.
Oh yeah,
Monday morning meetings.
We have a goal tracking software where we load in what
software do you use?
Chorus.
Chorus?
Yes.
CHORUS?
KH.
KHR. Oh yeah, Chorus. I've heard of that. Okay.
Yeah, and so we put our metrics in there at the beginning of the quarter that here are the initiatives we want to accomplish, boiled down to the leadership team, what are their initiatives and their goals, and pushing that down to the rest of the organization. But we meet every Monday, and not only am I sharing my goal with the CEO, but I'm also getting to see everyone in the leadership team's goal, where they are tracking on that goal, and then what do we need to be able to do to support that.
So how many people on the team and what are their roles?
So we've got the CEO, president, we've got our CIO, we've got our vice president of services, our CFO, and our director of HR, and our in-house counsel.
Who handles sales?
That's me.
That's you, okay.
That's me.
So that's a 7-person, including counsel. So what are you looking at?
So we're looking at everything from how do we better grow the profitability of the organization? How do we add new MRR? How do we
MRR, monthly
recurring revenue?
Yeah.
Sorry. How do we grow our client satisfaction? And then also, what do we do to evolve our service offering? And that one's more of a subjective type of goal, but looking at the technology landscape and what things do we need to do to prepare for 3 years from now so that we can invest in the right people and invest in the right training now to set us up for that in the future.
We had Jeff Brown from Quorum Group here, and he talked about MRR and when you acquire a company, the value of that. When you're buying a business, do you look at the kind of the mix, the revenue mix?
Yeah, we're looking at revenue mix as it relates to monthly recurring revenue, whether that's managed services or complete IT outsourcing, but also monthly recurring revenue associated with software as a service and that type of thing. But then looking at their hardware sales, their project sales, all of that. And obviously the complete IT outsourcing component of that is valued much higher than what they're making selling workstations.
Right, one-offs, the recurring. So coming back to the management team, are you looking at profitability? How are you looking at it, and what do you do with it? I mean, I got the sense of the long-term 3-year goals, but let's talk about like the blocking and tackling, right? If somebody's listening to this today and they're trying to, figure out how to be a well-run company, what advice would you give them? What should they be looking at?
Really understanding what's other people in your space doing. We belong to a group called Service Leadership Index Group that we go and we benchmark our data, and it's great to understand what other people are doing, but then understanding your own numbers, and then knowing where your numbers need to be able to hit the goals that you want to do. One of the things we learned is the way you run your business, the way I run my business is going to be very different. And while we can compare numbers, that's very, very important to get a benchmark type of information, but also understanding internally the way we run our business, what makes that change? How do I need to alter that goal to hit the goals that I need to hit? Because I may be wanting to do more sales than what the industry average is. So what levers there do I need to pull to be able to hit that?
That's very interesting. Yeah, SLIs, we have a lot of clients who are members of the Heartland Technology Group, HTG. Are you in HTG?
We have been in HTG in the past, which is now part of ConnectWise.
I know.
Well. Yeah.
And we actually built a connection between ConnectWise timesheets and QuickBooks to help automate some of that job costing. And it's an outstanding approach. I mean, whatever industry you're in, finding the industry trade group to show you what the benchmarks are, allow you to be able to objectively go to your management team and say, here's where we are versus what our peers are at, makes it a lot easier to maybe to make that case for why things need to change.
And seeing where our peers at on an average, but then also what's the best in class, as they call them, the best performers that are making the most money and having the highest profits, what are they doing to get there? And then being able to play into that. And to your point, we share that information not only with our leadership team, but we have quarterly town halls where we share it with the entire employees.
What are you sharing with the employees?
So we're sharing everything down to profitability.
I love it.
Top line revenue, where we are, where we're trying to get to. When we miss along the way, we share that with them as well. And then from a profitability point of view, how much money is the company making? And why do we need to make that money? And helping them understand the reinvestment that it takes to run a business like this, and that we constantly have to be able to get that cash so that we can go out and make more acquisitions to add to the mix and that kind of thing. So helping them understand that profitability is there for a reason, and what that looks like, not just today, but in 2022, and what that can look like for them as to the number of positions that will open up and the number of opportunities that opens up in the organization.
I love it. You just hit on something that's really near and dear to my heart. We created this 5 steps to profitability, which is how a human capital strategy and a financial management strategy come together. What you just outlined very eloquently is step 3 is setting clear goals, right? Here's where we want to get to revenue-wise and profit-wise. Step 4 is keeping score. What's the actual result? And then to me, the most important is step 5 is recognition and reward. Why is this good for everyone in the company? And I, when I do my Vistage speaking, I preach that you need to share top line and bottom line with everyone in the company so they understand we're in business to make money, and so what's your role in achieving that? But some people come back and say, I don't want them to know how much profit we're making. How do you respond to that?
Everybody wants to know what's in it for them.
Right.
And if you don't show that you're making money, it's going to cast instant doubt. Now whatever you think they think is probably wrong.
Right.
And they're going to think you're making a lot more money than you are, or worse, they may think that the business is struggling to the point that they are not going to be able to make payroll, and I better go out and find another job.
Right.
And so I think that transparency it's huge, and we've been doing it now for well over 5 years, and it's been fantastic for the employee morale, but also keeping people motivated and keeping people motivated to work towards the same common goal.
I've never heard a company who regretted sharing the profitability and the target profitability, as long as they take that last step, which is what's in it for the employees. Why is it good for everybody if the company makes money?
Yeah.
I mean, when you hired your employees, they all knew you're in the business to make a profit, right?
Sure.
So last question, I guess, would be what would your managers do with this information? And once you put data into their hands, like the profitability of first off, how do you slice and dice it for each manager? Let's take an operations manager. What do you give them?
So again, everybody gets everything, but then we drill in with, on the service side, what's our total number of headcount? What's the total salary dollars that we have? What's the total software investment that we're making versus the revenue coming in from our clients, but also the number of users or number of employees that we're supporting at our client's basis. And from there, we can pull those levers to make an investment or hold back on hiring. If sales leads are coming down, then maybe that means service needs to slow play the job search. Doesn't mean we're going to yank the job off the table, but maybe we don't do a full court press to get that person hired right now.
Or not make the offer yet.
Yes. And I think that's very important to make sure that your departments are sharing goals with each other, not just that department has their goal and they're hitting their goal, but they have that visibility into what's going on in the other departments. Just like on the sales side, if we know from operations they've got 8 onboardings in the hopper right now, then let's let up on the gas just a tad bit to schedule those next onboardings with new clients coming on board, and maybe that means we need to schedule those out 3-4 months from now. But if we have those conversations with our prospects now, then it makes that decision and that timeline a lot easier.
Right, you're making data-driven decisions.
Correct.
Set expectations correctly. Well, anything you want to close with? Anything you want to share with the audience here? To what a well-run company like Aldridge, what lessons you've learned or words of advice?
Never stop reevaluating. When you think you have it right, it's probably wrong, and you should take a look at it with a closer look to see where you're missing the mark and how you can refine it and keep getting better, because at least in our industry, technology is always changing. And if you get comfortable with it and you say, here's what we're going to do, and we're going to do it for the next 2 years, that's probably not going to be accurate. So make sure that you never stop reevaluating the way you look at your data. You never stop reevaluating what's coming next and what changes you need to make now to impact the future.
If somebody wants to hire Aldridge, how do they find you?
www.aldridge.com is the best way to get a hold of us. You can fill out a form, you can chat with us, you can call us. All that information's right there.
Bryan, I really appreciate you taking the time and coming to Kingwood for this Put Your Numbers to Work podcast.
Yep, I appreciate the offer.
Thanks.
Thank you.